the We Knew the Moon podcast, where we love all things empath, spiritual, witchy, unexplained, and spooky. Hosted by me, Dee Safier, co-founder of the Goddess Temple Twickenham, and joined by lots of special guests.
Hi, my name's Amber Collins. I'm the podcast host for the Neurodivergent Awakening pod, which is all around my journey as an autistic and ADHD woman, as a mum, parenting, and basically my unmasking journey and what that looks like. So I've been doing that for around 6 months now. No, less than that, because I've only got about 15 episodes. Anyway, I'm also a content creator. I'm a mum to a 3-year-old who's also autistic, and I'm also a social media manager.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, my name's Dee, and I'm the host of We Knew the Moon podcast, and that is the official podcast of the Goddess Temple Twickenham. So do check both of them out. We do events and all sorts of stuff. Over to you, Sareta.
Hi, my name is Sareta Fontaine. I'm a writer and the creator of Women Who Rebrand, a UK-based lifestyle platform that champions growth, inspiring women to live authentically while navigating the challenges of modern day life. The platform is home to the self-titled podcast, Women Who Rebrand, and insightful articles covering careers, health and wellness, and relationships as womenwhorebrand.com and Women Who Rebrand on Instagram. So that's me. And this is the first time I'm actually doing a collaborative podcast episode. I'm so excited.
Same. So this is a bit of a learning curve for us all.
Yes.
So bear with us. All right. Well, we wanted to talk a little bit about our own journeys with our different diagnoses. So Amber, do you want to tell us? You already mentioned a little bit.
So I'm a fully neurodivergent woman. So I've got multiple diagnoses.
Woohoo!
No, so my journey as a woman who's neurodivergent is slightly unusual because most neurodivergent women are late diagnosed. But I was diagnosed with autism when I was around 3.5 because I was super non-verbal until I was around 6. I didn't talk. But the weird thing that my family did was they didn't tell me. So no one told me. I had no idea. And then I got to 13, saw the word autism on a form, went, Mum, can I just obviously reiterate, this is 1996 when I got diagnosed. My mum was a single parent. She was 22 when she had me. And my dad went as soon as I got diagnosed. Very not long afterwards, he left. So she was navigating the whole thing around with no internet, no Google, no support groups. So I think in her mind, she was like, oh, I don't want her to feel different. So she just didn't tell me. So that's the conversation we've had. And my mum did a lot of things right. But that was the one thing she got wrong. So not bad, for someone who's like navigating that time. But yeah, I saw the word in the form and Mum was like, oh, it just means you need a bit of help. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And then I saw the film Rain Man and I went, no. Can I swear on here? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Fuck this shit. I was like, I am not Rain Man. And I just went, nope, I'm not doing this. That is not me. I do not do not prescribe to that. So I just masked horrendously my entire life, got to 25, had a mental breakdown, which was actually an autistic burnout, kind of rejigged my whole life, got pregnant, had my little boy, very quickly realised he was autistic. He literally came out flapping, this kid, like very outwardly autistic. And I was like, I need to look into this for his sake, because I went straight into victim mode, straight into like, oh my God, what's going on? And actually I was like, hang on, I've got everything I need to help him. I know exactly what he's going through. I need to go through this. So I've kind of gone into it like a late diagnosed woman, even though I'm not.
Can I just ask you to explain about masking for those who aren't that familiar with it?
So masking is the act of a neurodivergent person, and this can go, you can mask for all sorts of things, like if you have mental health, bipolar, schizophrenia, or everyone along these lines masks. And masking is essentially the act of pretending you're neurotypical and pretending that you're not needing anything different. So you're pretending that you're normal. I'm doing like air quotation marks for the sake of the audio. So you basically act like you don't have sensory issues. You mimic other behaviours to fit in and to appear normal. And you almost construct like a completely fake personality. And every single person that I've ever met who is neurodivergent has gone through this experience. It's a very universal experience. And you don't often know you're doing it until you've been diagnosed. Because I got my ADHD diagnosis this year. So I turned 30 like the week after I got my ADHD diagnosis. And I realised that every single career that I've had, obviously if you're ADHD, you'll know you kind of bounce from job to job. But the career I'd picked, I'd worked in beauty, and I'd almost like subconsciously built my entire life around my neurodivergence, but not realised, if that makes sense. And
yeah, definitely.
And even down to like my personality. So I came out of my big burnout and it was almost like, who the fuck am I? Because I had constructed this entire facade that wasn't real, like down to the clothes I wore, the way I did my hair, the music I listened to. Like I'd pretend that I like deep house. I fucking hate deep house. But like I'd pretend that I like this shit, like for no reason other than I wanted to fit in. I'd pretend that I enjoyed going clubbing. I pretended that I enjoyed going out for drinks. I hate it. I hate the taste of alcohol. Do you know what I mean? Like all these things that I just pretended to do because it was what was socially acceptable. And then, after I had my son, and by the time he was 1, it was really, really clear he was autistic. And he had several delays. He's doing amazing now. Like literally the kid, he's so clever. Like it actually blows my mind how clever he is. And he's doing really well. But at the time I was like, oh my God. And I went right into victim mode and I was like, this isn't helping us. And kind of without overstepping both of your journeys, it kind of leads into my spiritual journey, which was what we're going to talk about. So that's kind of how that marries up. Your trajectory.
Yeah,
the trajectory.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get into this. And Dee?
I am dyslexic and we're all, Sareta and I are a little bit older than you, but we're of still that generation that these conditions were not being tested that often and that regularly in the same way as they are now, right? So it's not a surprise that especially our age group were being diagnosed later, if at all. So I've always been dyslexic, but I was only diagnosed when I went to art college. And part of the reason was because I always did really well at school. But I, now understanding more about masking, realized that I was masking. I was staying up ridiculous hours getting my work done. And it was work that seemed to like come so easily to other people. When I went to art college, it's very common for neurodivergent people to go into the creative arts. And so they had a bit of a drive to test people for I don't know if they did autism and ADHD, but they definitely did dyslexia. So I got tested for dyslexia at uni. And lo and behold, I am dyslexic. And it felt such a relief. It didn't feel like bad news. It felt like relief because I was like, okay, I get it. I'm not stupid. These are because of this, that, and the other. And actually, I could look at it as like a curse or whatever, but actually there's all these advantages and all of this stuff, like I'm incredibly good at speaking, I think. And so did the psychiatrist. So, he said I was in the top 3% for speaking and I have a very visual memory. So if I see something, I can remember that image very well. I've got like almost photographic memory. So It's just like focusing on, the positives really, which takes a bit of time and can be quite difficult.
It's a massive mindset shift, isn't it? Having to kind of not see it as like this big deficit.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So what about you, Sareta? I've been following your journey.
So with me, I'm a late diagnosis adult. I turned 40 and was diagnosed with, turned 40.
You're not 40.
I'm 40. Obviously, I can pass for an 18-year-old. I love it. So, no, I was diagnosed quite late on. For me, I specifically thought, okay, do you know what? I've always thought maybe ADHD, but I didn't really know anything about it. And as there's been more awareness online, people saying, ADHD is the trendy one now. And I don't think it's necessarily trendy in the case of, it's fun to have ADHD, so everyone's just claiming it. I think there's just so much more information out there now and people sharing their journeys, which, again, my age group, even 10 years ago, no one was really talking about it because it was like, well, you have a problem and it's, we don't discuss these things. So no one really knew. So, I saw a lot of things online and there was one particular thing, and I can't even remember what it was. It was one of the traits. And I was like, okay, that really does sound like me. I thought I was the only one that did that. And I think a lot of my traits I thought was just a weird, quirky thing that was just me. Yeah. So a lot of things made sense. When I was in school, I don't see myself as an academic. I'm not good at tests. When you said you have photographic memory, Dee, I was like, that is not me. Like, I'll remember random things that I enjoy from like years ago, but names, they go out of my head. I have to do some visual things to remember people's names and like connect the dots. My husband always gets annoyed that I forget people's names, but I'm like, right, and I'll pause and I'll be like, how do I know them? What did I see? Where's that box? And it's like I'm opening a box.
I think that's kind of how ADHD is. It's like you've got your sorting boxes, but they're all open.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Whereas a neurotypical person has them shut and there's nice clear sections.
Yeah.
Ours is like,
it's all over the place.
I know, she's everywhere.
Yeah. So when I was in school, I didn't do very well in exams, obviously. I didn't really pass many GCSEs, but I always was just told, you know, you're not very intelligent, you're not clever. And I took that on board. And I gravitated towards the arts because I always had a passion for the arts. So yeah, I did beauty, I did art, and now I'm obviously online, a content creator. And as you were saying, Amber, you kind of fit your work around
your brain,
your traits, and so it's, to me, it's not a surprise that I do so many different things, and I've done so many different things over the years, and I've obsessed with starting new projects. Yeah, that's the most exciting thing.
Neurodivergent women make amazing entrepreneurs. We make amazing entrepreneurs.
I'm clinging on to that bit because I like that bit. Everything I've done well. Yes. However, I haven't necessarily stuck to them. That's the only issue. So it's actually sticking to one thing and then just rising up with that amazing, career. So we'll see. You'll never know. But that's my journey. I was late diagnosed. It's been an eye-opener and lots of things make sense. At first, I think I was a bit like, oh, all these quirks that I thought were me and not necessarily me. So is that ADHD? Where's my personality?
But there is no start and beginning. That's the thing I found really hard to get my head around. There's no stop and start. It's not like I put a thing on my Instagram and like a yogurt, like a plain yogurt. You're not a plain yogurt with strawberries on top. You're a strawberry infused yogurt. Does that make sense?
Love it.
Strawberries,
that's the only thing
extra sugar.
Yeah, you're all of it. You're all of it together. And it's ingrained. And there is no, I am neurotypical Sareta, and then there's a line. There's ADHD. You're all one thing.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if I've decided that our souls are neurodivergent yet. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of like, is it a soul thing? Are we star seeds? Are we indigo? I don't know. But I definitely think it's the way your brain is wired, and there's nothing you can do to rewire it the way that it should be. Absolutely.
Which is kind of where I am now, because I'm like, well, I have ADHD. That's a part of me. It's still part of my personality because my personality was formed. It's part of it. So whatever, man, I'll get my words muddled up and go off on tangents and open random boxes and pause for like 20 minutes trying to remember a name. But that's just me, and I love it.
The thing is, how boring would it be if everyone was the same? And I think the world needs these differences. We need neurotypical people. We need neurodivergent people. The world wouldn't run without them.
Exactly that.
Well, we all touched on it, that we like the sort of spiritual side of things, don't we? We are very open-minded. I don't think any of us prescribe to a particular religion. I might be wrong, but we just love that kind of side of things. I mean, I'm here for it. If it's tarot, crystals, all sorts, fucking love it. Incense, I love to burn shit. I just hosted an event last night for the full moon. Exactly. And I had a super interesting conversation. I talked to Sareta about it a lot, and a super interesting conversation with you, Amber, about the links between being neurodivergent and the spiritual world. Does it make you more inclined to go down that route? Or are there things that make you more open to those sort of things? Or does the spiritual world fit in better with someone who's neurodivergent? We were just, really, really interested. You came to me with the idea and I was just hooked. So we just thought we'd kind of cover that a little bit today, right? About are there any links? Are there any connections? Are there any reasons why? I mean, I host these spiritual events, and a huge percentage of the people that come along to my events tell me that they have ADHD or they have autism or something. It's fascinating. We know that the numbers are going up for people that have been diagnosed with these things as awareness is increasing and research is increasing, but it just seems like too much of a coincidence. And when the universe throws you lots of coincidences, you got to listen, huh?
Exactly.
Right.
Over to you, Amber. You're going to tell us a little bit.
Okay. So kind of leading on from, obviously I was like, right, I need to kind of explore this. I started looking into spirituality. So I read 2 books. One was called Just Fucking Do It by Noor Hibbert. And the other one was actually, they're both very sweary books. That's Why I'm Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And both of those books changed my life completely. Both amazing books. And people always say that Just Fucking Do It is a business book. It's really not. So much of it goes into spirituality. And I think because Noor isn't neurodivergent, but because she explains things in quite a simple way, my little neurodivergent brain was like, yes. And it wasn't airy-fairy, because some of the airy-fairy bits, at first, I couldn't quite get my head around it, because I was always a very proud atheist. I was like, nope, I don't subscribe to anything. I'm not into it. Whereas this kind of flipped and made me go, oh, okay, I need to look at this because there's got to be some truth in it. And I started exploring that. And the more that I went into it and started looking into kind of different things, obviously so much of it is about self-acceptance and kind of your limiting beliefs and undoing those. And I realised most, if not all of my limiting beliefs are based around the fact that I felt I wasn't good enough. I felt I was stupid. I didn't think I was clever. And the thing is, at school, I was told I was clever, but I went through that kind of very... Neurodivergence tends to go kind of 1-2 ways, I find. Either we have an experience like Sareta where it's like you're stupid and, go and, colour in the corner, basically, which is what, you get. And then the other half is, you're gifted. You're exceptionally clever. And then you don't meet that expectation.
That
the expectation is too big and you can't meet it because you've got all these other things going on, like your sensory needs, everything else not being met, and you're masking. And I went from being one of the gifted people in my school, go and do a degree. And I'd done an art degree. I was going to do an art degree as well. I was going to go into fashion. And I was very good at art, into fashion. Not that you'd know it, I'm wearing a bloody Primark hoodie. And
still fashion, babes.
Yeah, still fashion. It's a zip top, it's fashion. Went into all that, and I got into uni. I went to Ravensbourne, and when it first opened up in Greenwich, and I walked in, and I was like, I just crumbled. I could not do it. I don't know if part of it was because at school, the way the school system is, kind of works. If you're kind of sometimes.
Was it the structure?
Yeah, the structure really helped me. So every minute of every day is like streamlined. Like you go to lunch and then you do English and then you do maths, and it's streamlined. And even though I struggled with my concentration doing work, they put it down to my home life because just the way my home life was set up, they put it down to that. They didn't put it down to, it's because you're autistic and potentially could have ADHD. So I had support with that. And I had support teachers because of my autism. Not that I knew that's what it was, but I knew I had a support teacher. And even at school, I don't know how I didn't get bullied because at school I had a support teacher and all the kids in my class, I was in the naughty but clever class, if that makes sense. The class where if we all put ourselves to it, we could be in top set, but we're all naughty, so we're in the top third. So everyone has that experience. So I was in that set. And I remember I was with all the really naughty, the naughty, bad, popular kids, and then there was me.
Right.
Why has Amber got a support teacher? She's the clever one. And they were all like, no, we want one. It was just really funny how everyone reacted. It was I think kids are just actually accepting. If you let kids be accepting, they will be. But yeah, I never ever once got picked on for, you're clearly, whatever. No one, they picked on me for being fat and being a bit dorky, but not for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, tangent.
There will be loads on this episode.
Loads of tangents. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so by the time I got to uni and you had so much free time, it was all self-directed. It was a brand new university. Why I thought that would be a good idea. And I remember my teachers going, please don't go there. Please don't go there.
Oh, wow.
Because they were like, you need something very the structure is there and they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad university. I've got friends who've done really well there. And if you're doing media and filming, amazing university. she didn't really even do a fashion course there. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't the right, and we all said it. We were like, it wasn't quite right. I should have gone, and I wanted to go Camberwell. And my mum was like, "You're not going to Camberwell," because she just thought I was going to get stabbed. I don't know. She worried about that. So I ended up again being restricted, going to this university that was seen as safe, but it wasn't the right place for me. And really, I should have done psychology. Like, you know, you're just like
that would have been amazing. Yeah.
I wish I had done a psychology degree, and I did psychology as an A level, and my teacher was like, "Please go do a degree in it. Like, you get it, and I think it'd be really good for you." And I was like, "No, I'm going to go do fashion." I could, like that. And then I dropped out, and I was like, I'm going to do hairdressing because I wanted to do makeup artistry. So I did makeup artistry and hair, did that for a few years, doing like London Fashion Week and doing all different things, assisting, done all that.
How interesting that you and Sareta, Amber and Sareta, you've both had like very similar careers.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of us do this, and I think it's because that kind of need of wanting to do lots of different things, and I feel like with me, I always have like a 1-year expiry for any kind of project that I set my mind to, or any kind of job. And I ended up meeting my partner, working on a makeup counter, and then I ended up doing makeup counter management for like 6-7 years. And the reason it worked was because I could jump from counter to counter every year, so I could stay with the same company. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of the company.
Oh, just say it.
Oh, it was Lancome. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no,
all right
Lancome.
then. Lancome. Oh.
And do you know what? They were actually really amazing to work for, and they kind of got me without me ever disclosing. So I never ever disclosed my disability ever. Never officially. I never went to HR and went, "Oh, I'm autistic. Blah, blah, blah. I need this. I need that." And I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to ask for accommodations. I didn't know that was an option. You know, like I didn't know that was a thing. And I remember just thinking, "Oh, maybe I've got anxiety." And in the end, I just went, "Oh, I have anxiety." And I didn't actually think I had autism. I thought I was anxious. And I was like, "Oh, they've got it wrong. I'm just a really anxious person." So I would do a year, and because I was really good at my job, I would get accounts that had like nothing, and they'd be like bottom of the thing. And then they'd go, "Oh, can you go to this account and fix it?" I would, and then I'd leave and go do another one. So I very quickly bounced, very quickly got pay rises and all the rest of it. It was really, really good. Then changed to a different company. Don't do that. And then just completely and utterly couldn't cope with being with the other company. And that was where I had burnout. So from doing that, that was when I did the kind of like spiritual stuff. So I'd realised I'd kind of structured so much of what I had done around that. And a lot of my limiting beliefs were, you know, you're not good enough and you're not smart enough and different things, especially down to being like non-verbal until 6. I think I've realised now I have a massive thing around my throat track, like my throat chakra, and even going into chakras and all these different things. Once I'd opened my mind up to them, I was like, oh my god, it feels like a neurodivergent brain is more welcomed in these spaces.
Of course.
And things like stimming. So for people that are listening don't know what stimming is. Stimming is normally an autistic thing, but ADHD people can stim too. And stimming is when if you think of like a sneeze and a hiccup, you can repress a sneeze, but you can't repress a hiccup. So where people say tics are more like hiccups, where like you physically can't stop yourself. You need to twitch, which again is quite common within neurodivergence. Lots of people have tics. Lewis Capaldi's recently come out as having Tourette's, and his interview with Stephen Bartlett was really good, and he explained tics really well. Stimming is more like a sneeze. So you really need to do it. It's incredibly uncomfortable to hold it in, but you can at a push to your detriment, to your discomfort. And the reason people withhold their stimming in public is because it's a form of masking, because it's not acceptable to me as a 30-year-old woman to walk around, you know, flapping my hands. It's not hurting anyone if I do that.
Yeah.
But in society, it's unacceptable, like air quotation marks. So I never stimmed because it was just always deemed as unacceptable. So it's never been something I've been able to do. So I've always had this pent-up need, energy.
Right.
Oh, I was anxious, but actually it's because I wasn't giving myself a movement. And that's why exercise is really good for neurodivergent people, and I really recommend some form of exercise, even if it's just walking. So when I discovered like EFT tapping and breath work, and I can stand in a room and I can do deep breaths, and I remember the instructor was like, right, and you jump around, and he was literally stimming, full on having a stim. And I was like, you're stimming? And he was like, what's that? And he didn't know. And I was like, it was the first time. And I remember it took me ages to feel comfortable to actually do it because it was going against my psyche of, no, this is bad, you need to mask. So now, like, even with my son, he's super stimmy and like just constantly stimulus him. And it can be an expression of joy. Some people think it's an expression of anxiety. It's not. Often it's an expression of joy, an expression of comfort. So he'll stim when he's really, really happy. Some people do stim with anxiety, or they have anxiety stims. You okay?
No.
I just saw your face. I was like, get the thought out before you forget.
Thank you. You still get this comfort there. No, so stimming, you said it's usually something that you do when you're really happy. So would that be like, I don't know. So if I'm in a good mood, like if there's good food, I'll do a little dance. Or if I'm enjoying myself or I get a bit excited, you see it in my body and I can't contain myself. It has to come out. It's like energy. Is that not just a, again, in quote, normal thing? Do people not do that? Or...
I talk about this a lot. Sometimes traits...
shaking their heads.
No, individualised traits don't necessarily... If you have like one trait or something, doesn't mean you're autistic or ADHD. And autism and ADHD has way more crossovers than people realise. They used to be two completely separate things. There's now a lot of crossovers. So ADHD people can have sensory issues. They can have stims. You can stim. And it can be from that exit. It can be like a form of your hyperactivity. So if you're a hyperactive ADHD person, then definitely you can stim. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. This is just all the stuff that I've kind of like correlated in my research. But yeah, no, that is a form of a stim. So a stim can be something as simple as like, I'll sit here and do this a lot. If you ever see me do that, so I'm just tapping my fingers for the audio. That can be a stim. I haven't got them on today because they've been charging, so they're now on my side. But like my chakra bracelets and my chip bracelets, they make amazing like fidget toys and sensory kind of stimuli. So I sit there, there they are. I haven't got mine on, they've been charging in the garden. I need to put them on.
They charged mine last night, I forgot.
I rushed out. I haven't put them on yet. But the chakra ones in particular, it's got tourmaline and it's a lovely crunchy crystal. Yes. It's like really crispy. So I will sit there playing with that. And that's a very new thing for me. Like this is something I've repressed for years and years and years. And this is why fidget toys are really good. Like Blue Tack even, Play-Doh, little fidget stress toys, they're perfect. So things like that, like I say, you have access to those things. And even crystals, like the ritualistic stuff, all very neurodivergent affirming. EFT tapping, the first time I saw someone EFT tapping, I was like, holy shit, that's a really good way of stimming, because you can sit there and just kind of move that energy, but do it in a way that you feel in control. So if you're someone that's masked like your entire life like me, you can do all your tapping and feel that energy move, but you're not feeling like weird.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Do you know about tapping? Do you do tapping?
Yeah, I don't do it.
Oh, sorry. If you explain it, Dee, better than me, because
I think you. Well, I'll try. But it's this idea that you have different points on your. There's one routine that's the sort of basic one that you've got different points on your body, your face, and your neck area. That if you tap, you can like instantly relieve anxiety and so forth. It's kind of like pressure points.
Yeah, it's the pressure point. So I've got a headache here. So when I come off this call, I will do tapping. So I will literally. And you go along, it's emotional freedom technique. There's a really good book called The Tapping Solution, and they've got a documentary about it on YouTube, and it's all free. So if you want to look into it, just I'd watch that. But very, very helpful, and you can use it to relieve like limiting beliefs and blocks. So say if you were worried about money, and you could tap on it and say like, I'm a wealthy woman, I'm abundant, money flows to me of ease. Like you can do all that, and you can bring it down your body. And it's a bit like when you do chakra unblocking, if you've ever done that, you're moving that blocked energy. So it's the same kind of thing, but it's a much more accessible way of doing it rather than having to go to like a healer. You can do it yourself.
Yeah. See, I feel like a bit of a newbie. So again, I've always said I'm quite spiritual, but I didn't really understand what that actually meant. And again, it's not like I had all of this information in front of me to consume. So I guess I've just gone along my own spiritual journey and learned things along the way. So I know about chakras, but I don't know about like tapping out chakras and all of that. But it's really interesting how we are all very similar in different ways, but then similar in the sense that there's so many things that are exactly the same. Like, again, going back to you saying how it's not like I felt stupid in a way because I wasn't able to do things. It was that, I think it was the expectation I struggled with.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was always told, you know, you're really good at reading, you're really good at writing, you're really good at blah, 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 blah. And then when the test came, it's like, well, I got like one. Yeah, like, this is ridiculous. What's going on? And then I'd get in like a lot of trouble. So it was like a constant thing of, I really want to meet people's expectations. I want
People
to disprove. I can do it. Yeah. And then.
And how many of you had this, right? So having to explain to people that you dyslexic, autistic, and so forth. So many people are like, oh, well, don't worry. Einstein was dyslexic. And it's like, yeah, but please don't expect me to be the next Einstein. Do you know what I mean?
Stage left. Yes.
Yeah. Like, I'm just going to be a normal person. I won't be no Einstein. And it's like, they need to, like, I'm thinking of my parents, bless them. They needed to know, okay, that doesn't mean she can't still have a high achieving life. And, you know, and I get that.
But I think, why is the expectation always got to be that you're a high achiever? Why can't the expectation be you're just happy?
Oh, because I have an Arab dad.
Oh.
But no, bless them. They were amazing. But it's like, they need to be like, oh, it's okay. I need to know, like, they need to know famous people in history and currently that have that diagnosis, so they can be like, okay, she'll be okay.
Yeah, she'll still be successful. And I think that's probably the worry with parents. They want your child to do well and be successful. So if they see or hear anything that they feel that might get in the way of that, well, it's like, right, okay, so who is successful? Einstein. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. So I guess
now you've got to be Einstein.
Yeah, D.
Yeah.
I don't think
I'll try.
Media's helped with this. So either, like, you look at, you know, who in the media is autistic. Name the first person. Sheldon Cooper. Like, we're not all saving science. Oh, I can look at that and know how many threads of cotton are in that pillow. Like, I, you know, it doesn't always go that way. And I think because we've had such limited media representation of all these things, neurodivergence as a whole, especially no female representation, let alone black characters, let alone, you know, anyone with any colour, let alone gay, lesbian, whatever, do you know what I mean, transgender.
That's true.
It's just straight white men, when I think it's something like 2/3 of neurodivergent people are LGBTQI.
Wow. 2/3. Wow.
So a third of LGBTQ are neurodivergent, 2/3 of neurodivergent people are LGBT. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And 1 in 6 trans people are autistic.
What?
I had no idea.
Neither did I.
It's the same as, you know, things like authority and structure. It doesn't make any fucking sense to us.
Yeah.
You love who you love.
Yeah.
So again, going back to, you know, the whole spiritual thing and people that have, I guess, been treated differently in a way. Do you think some of these like traits can come out as coping mechanisms to that? And even like Dee, you were saying, you know, on your workshops, when you're doing things, there's a lot of neurodivergent people that come. Do you find that because I guess they're so maybe open-minded and willing to, well, no, they have the type of brain that kind of thinks outside of the box anyway and thinks further. Do you think they're kind of just gravitating towards the same kind of communities because they feel like they fit?
Well, I think part of the joy of like the spiritual community is, on the whole, there are some exceptions, it's a very open-minded community, a very welcoming community. Like, weirdos are totally embraced, you know? We love our little weirdos. Exactly. We are the weirdos. What's different to sort of being spiritual as opposed to being in a religion is that you could pick and choose whatever you want from the spiritual world. True. You don't like tarot? Fine, don't do tarot. You don't like crystals? Fine, don't do crystals. You know, you can pick and choose, and you can hop between them as well, which is really nice, isn't it? And probably very suited to the neurodivergent brain.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I just remember, I just wish I could remember everything.
Yeah.
I learn a lot of spirituality things and I get obsessed and it's there for a while and then I'm like, right, let's put it back in the box, or put it in this box, and we'll label it, seal it up, and then when you need it, it'll come out.
Do you find you're very reward driven? Like, if you don't get that reward, both of you, do you find if you don't get that reward or that instant, I manifested this thing, you then
I
put
see
it back
what you mean.
I'm going to say yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely in. So this is my thing, star signs. I absolutely love star signs and stuff like that. However, I don't like to listen to star signs or read them before my day. So I'll do my day and then I'll check my star signs. I'm like, you did it anyway. Well done. You well done. Because I don't know. It's like, that's my little pat on the back for me. Because I'm like, you did well. And even your star sign said you did well. So I guess it's
you're
kind
aligned.
of like, yes, I like praise. I like to know I've done well because I'm always, I guess, or have been fearful that I'm not doing a good job. So I definitely work better with feedback, because if there's nothing, that's going to open up the box of, well, are you doing it right? You're not doing it right. They obviously hate you. And I struggled with that for years.
Yes.
I would meet someone, feel their energy and be like, well, they don't like me. They absolutely don't like me. And no one else would actually understand. And I'm like, well, it's obvious they don't like me.
And
but
you have no evidence either.
No.
Crazy person.
Right.
Yeah.
But then it would go, my earlier years, that would feed into the whole people pleasing. So if someone didn't like me, I'm nice. Why do you not like me? I'm going to be so nice to you that you're going to like me. But that would just do the opposite, because it would be so...
Yeah, and you've got to remember, your brain's hunting for dopamine.
Yes. That is something I've actually learned recently, this whole dopamine thing. And it is mind-boggling.
I have it tattooed on my wrist. Dopamine and serotonin.
How cool is that?
That's so cool. I haven't got any tattoos. That might have to be much. You know what? I've always wanted to get a tattoo. I've never got one. That's going to be my first one.
To be honest, I started getting my first tattoos in my 30s. So you still got time. You still got time. But yeah, this whole dopamine thing. So again, I've heard that word a lot on the internet. And to me, I probably have read it, but I've forgotten. Remember, I'm not very good at tests and revising and stuff. So dopamine, is that like a happy inducing chemical in your brain?
It's the reward center in your brain.
Right.
So basically, people with ADHD, I don't know so much with dyslexia, but people definitely with ADHD, because it's not an autistic thing either. We either have low sources of dopamine or our brain sucks it up too quickly. Those are the two things that happen. That's where the chemical imbalance comes in. So obviously, because your brain is starved of dopamine, it will direct you and control you to do things in order to survive, because it thinks, I've got no dopamine, like we're going to die. So that's a survival thing. And it will make you do things like search for sex, impulsive behaviours like shopping, binge eating, scrolling on your phone. TikTok is a dopamine monster. TikTok gives you instant gratification, constantly. If you're not getting that instant gratification, like a reward, like, well done, you've done a good job. If you're not getting that, your brain goes, no, I'm not doing this.
Interested.
And not interested. You don't want to do it anymore. You lose motivation. And I think that's kind of why a lot of us have expiry dates with businesses and stuff, because running a business is fucking hard. So we're all full of ideas. Give it a year and you've got to do a tax return. You're like, no, this isn't for me.
Wow.
It's mind numbing, and you will procrastinate and put it off. So there's lots of different things that are linked with that, but the dopamine thing is the main thing. And on a basic level, that is your brain is essentially hunting for dopamine. Well, that's why a lot of us end up with addiction issues, eating issues, bad finances, because you just impulsively spend, especially if it's on a special interest or a hyperfixation. How many of us have gone, I'm really into crystals now, fuck it, and then you go.
I have all of them in the whole world. Well, for me, it's slightly different because I have general anxiety disorder, hence the serotonin as well as the dopamine, because that is something that my chemical imbalance.
You're deficient in,
So it's again similar. It's like constantly searching that high and the happiness drug and so forth. Now it's store-bought. And if you need to go down the store-bought route and take meds, then So be it.
Oh, store-bought dopamine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
Serotonin for me.
Sorry,
No. So serotonin, store-bought. I have meds for my anxiety, and it helps me so much. Because one thing that does bother me sometimes in the spiritual world is that it's a lot about like natural this, natural that. You shouldn't take meds. Fuck that. If it's the best for you, then you fucking,
I just think too many have done backtracking. Certain people, I'm not going to name names, very, very big spiritual author who got postnatal depression. So after years of spouting, don't take drugs, don't do this. She nearly died. She nearly wanted to kill herself. Sorry, can I say kill herself?
Yeah.
She wanted to kill herself and then had to go on antidepressants. And now she's completely changed her tune and got a new book about it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to tell others what to do when you haven't had that experience. I'm very wary of people like that.
Yes, I don't deal with people like that.
Also, science is magic. The fact that that these things have been invented, and we're not promoting big pharma here. That's another issue.
We are not sponsored.
No,
we are not sponsored.
No, unfortunately. But like the fact that, if you have a problem and it can be fixed by medicine, that's fucking amazing. Why wouldn't you do yourself that favor? I'm not saying that everyone should go down this route or that anti-anxiety meds are for everyone. I'm not saying that at all. But just if you have any kind of issue, any mental, physical, whatever, consider your options and research them. And don't feel like you have to go down the route of like doing things natural or whatever.
Actually, these people, if they want to wear glasses, they'll wear glasses. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. What point do you stop? These are the people that tell you to go and have a natural birth without painkillers. Why? That's not everyone's journey. That's not realistic for everyone. People used to die. Women and babies used to die when we all did that. Like, again, not saying you shouldn't do that, but like take advice.
What's best for you in your situation?
Absolutely.
So that's, my little PSA about meds.
The rant.
Let's go back to the whole spiritual thing.
Yeah. You were going to tell us a little bit, Amber, about childhood trauma.
Yeah. So something, I think Sareta actually touched on it really briefly. So basically, there's no studies on anyone who's neurodivergent in particular, so in particular autism, who isn't traumatized. We've all gone through trauma from masking and having to adhere to these expectations.
Yep, that makes sense.
It's all trauma. So when we say the word trauma sounds like, oh my God, you've been abused or you've been beaten. Trauma isn't. Trauma can be like low level, smaller things, little tiny things that build up and build up and build up, but they actually traumatize you. And it's really frightening when you become a parent and you realise that and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, because it's like, well, am I traumatizing my own kid? Are they going to come back to me in like 40 years and be like, you traumatized me?
Literally. And the thing is, it's really funny because I can see like where my parents have been traumatized. So like my parents haven't been together since I was like 4 years old, but we've individually had really good conversations around stuff that they've gone through and how it's influenced their choices as adults. And both my parents have a very childlike quality to them. And I think that's why, because their childhoods were quite traumatic. They've ended up coming together, trauma bonding.
Right, yes.
And all the rest of it. And then they've had me and my brother, and I've ended up obviously with all these different things. My brother's neurotypical, which people can never get their heads around. But my dad's got very severe ADHD, and he's only now just realising it himself because of me and my son. And his wife is like, no, you're not. And I'm like, I can see your traits too, hun. Really hope they don't listen to this. It's not in a horrible way. It's nothing I haven't said to them. But, I even joked to my dad. I was like, I've got some written in here that doesn't agree with me. Do you want it? I didn't do that. That's stealing a car.
Yes, we don't share medication.
We don't share
Even
medication.
If you ask me loads and loads, I'm not sharing. Do you know how expensive that stuff is? But I'm not sharing it.
So yeah, obviously we joked about it, but and we were talking about it, and he was like, "Oh, is that why like MDMA doesn't touch me? Because ADHD medication is essentially speed and MDMA." He was like, "Is that why it doesn't affect me?" I was like, "Oh, Dad."
So there's certain medications. Sorry, it's not medications. Let's just
recreational drugs
that would have no effect or little effect due to the
balance of your brain. Obviously, don't all start
no
experimenting.
Do not.
I will confess, as a teenager, I went to an American school, so there was a lot higher number of people who had already been diagnosed with ADHD. It was, they are further ahead in terms of being more aware of this as an issue, and definitely much more keen to prescribe drugs left, right, and center to children.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to have a few friends that had ADHD, and we used to take their Ritalin for fun. And it was fun, but I'm not recommending it.
But they're on not the flip side, but the other sides of that. I've heard of kids taking it when they've got exams to concentrate even more.
Like Adderall and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I actually am on medication. I think it's called Elvance or something like that. Yep. So it's kind of, I think it's in the same.
Methylionate?
Yeah. So it's a stimulant, right?
Yes.
I'm on. Yeah. Which is good because literally the first day I took it, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Sorry. Firstly, I don't feel like I need to procrastinate. I just want to get the job done. I'm enjoying my job and I'm doing 20 million thousand things in that one space. It's like, I can work so much better. And I'm like, other people work. But then I guess it's not in a way. It's like, I don't know. For me, I think the medication works with me in terms of what I want to do. If I've got a piece of work which I enjoy, again, I've carved out a career that I'm like, well, I have to enjoy it or I'm not going to do it. So I love content creation and I love being creative. When I've taken my medication, I'm just so focused that I can keep on going, no distractions, keep on going. And if I haven't taken my medication, I'm like, right, so I've got to start this in about an hour. I'll just sit here and
scroll on my phone. Yeah.
2 hours, 3 hours later, I'm like, all right, I'll start. And then I'm like, distractions. And so it would just take me that little bit longer. But with the medication, it's really helped. So I'm thinking if I could go back in time and go back to school, maybe if I was on medication, I would have been able to revise properly and retain, and even to the point of taking notes. I'm awful at taking notes.
Yeah.
Just the concentration. So there's good and bad when it comes to medication. It's just finding out what's right for you, if medication is right for you at all.
Because I really reacted quite adversely to it, which I was quite surprised by. Because I don't know if that's because of the autistic element as well, because a lot of autistic and ADHD people, when it's combined, they have to take antidepressants alongside their ADHD medication. And they're a little bit hesitant to do that with me because I've never taken antidepressants before. So they were like, they've put me on a non-stimulant, but I've not tried it yet because I go for surgery on Friday. I need to have a wisdom teeth out. It's nothing big, but I've got to have all 4 out and it's a whole thing.
Oh,
so I was like, I don't want to be on ADHD medication on anesthetics. So I was like, I'm just going to leave it until I come out of it. So my non-stimulant will stop my brain hoovering it all as quick. Whereas your stimulant is producing more dopamine for you.
Okay.
So that's the difference. Yeah.
I think that's what's frustrating for a lot of people is when you're taking medicine for your neurodivergency or for anxiety or a bunch of things, it can be a bit like trial and error. And that process is really frustrating because you hope that you just go in and they're like, you have this, here's your meds. But it can be a bit of a process to find the right dosage, to find the right medicine. And sometimes people give up on that completely. And, so stick it out if you're going down that route.
Yeah.
Going back to spirituality.
Yes, sorry.
We're going to have to rename this podcast.
Sorry.
No, it's all of us. I think it's definitely the...
Might have to be a two-parter.
All of us together. Yeah, so you discussed tapping crystals and breath work, and you were talking about being traumatized. That was where you left off.
Where we left off and then got distracted or something. Yeah, so I think, again, that spiritual journey, because even things like traditional CBT and counselling don't always work very well for neurodivergent brains. But in a way, like self-development is kind of CBT. Do you know what I mean? Very similar, like very similar things. And, telling yourself affirmations and doing meditations. Like the first time I meditated, I was like, wow, my brain is actually shut up for 2 seconds. Like, and that's a really hard thing to do because your brain is just constantly going. So actually being able to get to a space where it took me ages to learn to do it, like, because of course your brain pipes up and then you have to go and then do it again, but being able to do that has been able to help me so much with kind of like coping with the daily stresses that normally my fight or flight would like go off and I want to shout and scream and have a meltdown, all that. So all that kind of thing has lessened, and it's made me a better parent, definitely. Like, so I think that's where I realised I had to kind of do it, because when my son was going through it, obviously I was getting triggered by stuff he was doing. Like, our traits are completely opposite.
Right.
I'm very avoidant. I like peace. I like quiet. I need dark. I need to just sit down and no one talk to me for 10 minutes. Like, I need that.
Yeah.
Whereas you could blow a gun next to his head and he wouldn't blink. Like, he is on the go all the time.
Wow.
He is sensory, sneaking everywhere, climbing the walls, doing. And he, like, we can't have chill days. There are no chill days in this house because he literally will climb the walls and like he'd be like, go out. I'm like, okay. So
you don't have that desire to keep on going and searching for, I don't know, fun?
It's not so much fun. I think my idea of fun is different to his idea of fun. But I think it's more, my brain has a point where it's like, I physically can't do this and I need to shut down.
Right.
So that's where the autism comes in. I have that shut down.
Yeah.
Have to almost like what's the word?
Is it overwhelming?
Yes, it is very overwhelming. And it's almost like my brain is 10 steps ahead of me. It's like my brain is a separate entity. That's the only way I can describe it. So my brain will be going, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I'm like, hang on, I'm still over here. Like, I'm still over here processing the first thing that happened. So I'm trying to catch up all the time. So it's very frustrating. So when the medication didn't quite work for me, because it made me have suicidal ideation, like, you've got to be really careful with some of it. And where I've had depressive episodes and suicidal ideation in the past, they were a bit like, whoa, okay, come off that. Because I was on methylionate, but I was on Concerta, I was on a different brand. So it just didn't. And when they were like, oh, that's a children's dose, I was like, holy shit, like, that's terrifying. They gave me a kid's dose and I had such a severe reaction. So it's really scary. I did lose half a stone, which I was buzzing about, but yeah, I was going to that.
Stop it.
Sorry. Don't take it the weight loss. Sorry, I'm bad.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because in my research, one of the things with people that have been diagnosed with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, or even people that haven't been diagnosed with it, one common factor is finding their environment overwhelming. So you're more likely to resort to using things like noise cancelling headphones, darker glasses, and so forth. And it's important to sort of find ways to build resilience to those challenging environments, because we have to live.
Just live in it,
And so that's why it's more common that we turn to things like calming music or meditation, or even things like prayer or fasting or affirmations. And again, going down the creative route, because we have to use our left side analytical brain so much in real life and in our lives.
Daily life kind of thing.
That we want to, relax or balance out by using that right side, creative side, which is why you have a lot of people go down the artistic routes, like it seems like all three of us did. One of the misconceptions, I think, is that people with autism, ADHD, and other conditions are not very empathic of other people's emotions, that they don't understand other people's emotions. And that's not necessarily true. It might take a little bit while longer to process it, but then they feel them very intensely. So you are more leaning towards the empath route if you're neurodivergent. It might not be immediately obvious because you're processing things in a different way to someone who's neurotypical. But it's there. As a result, you talked about this, it can be comforting to spend more time on your own healing, your self-reflection. For many people, many elements of lockdown was actually a blessing. That's a little bit controversial to say, but
No, yeah, I get that.
There was elements of it I enjoyed. It suited me just fine. Obviously not the people dying of corona, but sitting at home, being able to have communication with other people only as and when I wanted to on my own schedule and that kind of stuff. It lended towards introspection, reflection, quiet time, which is perfect setup for spirituality as well. So I'm going to look at like the nitty gritty of some of what the science says, right? And so do pipe in and tell me what you think. But I looked in particular because my obsession is the moon. My podcast is called We Knew the Moon. The first season is all about the moon. But I looked in particular at sleep and melatonin. So I'll tell you a bit more about what that is. I know you both know, but for our audience. And I go into more detail. I have an episode in season 2, episode 12. It's called Moon and Body, aka Scorpio and the Anus. So do check out that episode if you want to hear a little bit more about how the moon affects everybody. I go into like the different studies on how it affects periods, sleep, and all kinds of different things, surgery, driving, absolutely everything. And I'm looking particularly at the full moon, because that's the one that's the most notorious, isn't it? Sleep trouble, violent behavior, mental health issues, menstrual cycles, all of these at some point have been associated with the moon. And almost every single country, culture, time period has got some kind of folklore about, like werewolves or something bad happening at night, and in particular the full moon. There are reports that surgeries don't take place on full moons. There's lots of reports of psych wards and nurses in birthing maternity units and police officers putting more of them on duty on a full moon because everyone goes a bit
nuts.
Yeah, the word lunatic comes from the word luna, the moon. And maybe part of this is because it's linked to like feminine energy, which is always seen as like dark and mysterious, which, we are dark and mysterious. Mm-hmm. Also, menstrual cycles have the same length as moon cycles. So there's an obvious link there, an association there. Like I said, I wanted to look a little bit more at sleep and how that affects people specifically who are neurodivergent. So there's a common belief that the full moon may result in poor sleep. The evidence remains inconsistent, though. It's like for every study that finds that there is a link, there's another one that proves that there isn't. So I don't know. For me, that says that some people are affected and some aren't, right?
Yeah.
Some people think that it's purely as a result of that night being brighter when there's a full moon, that there's, a bright light in the sky. So that quite often can impact someone's sleep if you're a light sleeper. But for example, found a study, it's a small study, there's only 33 volunteers in 2013, that on average, it takes 5 minutes longer to fall asleep during a full moon, which doesn't seem like much, but volunteers in the experiment also spent 30% less time in deep sleep, which for me that's massive. Again, super small study. And again, this might be because it's brighter. It might be because there's a stronger gravitational pull in the water in our bodies. We are largely made out of water. But people, for example, with autism have a higher prevalence for sleep problems already.
Yeah.
Sleep latency, the time it takes you to fall asleep, is one of the most common problems. Mm-hmm. And these problems are then amplified, if you go by the study, by the effect of the moon.
Yeah.
We all have melatonin in our body. This is a hormone which regulates our sleep and when we are sleeping and when we're awake. But those with autism already have a lower production of melatonin, especially at night. And a lack of it exacerbates autistic symptoms. So you already have less of it if you're autistic. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about ADHD, to be honest. I think that
generally,
yeah. So you already have less of it. The full moon comes out, you're probably going to be struggling even more to go to sleep, and therefore the impact of the melatonin in your body. And all of that makes your autistic symptoms come out more. Mm-hmm. So melatonin is the one that is affected by light. So if the night sky is brighter, i.e. during a full moon, then it will further affect our sleep. And exponentially so if you are autistic, according to some of these studies.
Right.
So yeah, I thought that was so interesting. For example, I found one study that was on epilepsy. So something slightly different. It was looking specifically at the impact of production of melatonin.
Epilepsy is one of the most common co-occurring conditions.
Is it? Interesting.
It's a form of neurodivergence. So it does come under the neurodiversity umbrella.
Right. Okay. Right. So, and
that's what I in the
yeah, no, amazing. And so clearly there's a link between epilepsy and melatonin because they're studying it in the context of epilepsy. But it found that the full moon may actually decrease seizure activity in epileptics. In these cases, research suggests that it may be due to the brightness of the moon rather than its phases. So the light of the full moon. So when the full moon was bright, when the moon was bright, i.e. full moon, participants had fewer epileptic seizures. They attribute this to the hormone melatonin, which is naturally secreted in your brain when the sun goes down, hence signaling that it's time to sleep. In epileptics, the brightness of the full moon counters this release, thus decreasing seizures. So they've proved that melatonin does decrease during the bright periods of the moon. In this case, for epileptics, that's a bonus because they have less seizures. But if, in other conditions, that will be a negative. Yeah, so I just found that was really interesting, that the scientific evidence behind the brightness of the moon or the gravitational pull of the moon. There's still a lot of research being done. Autism, I think, was only sort of discovered in quotation marks or, learned about in the 50s or something.
Yes.
So we've got so far to go.
It was World War II, wasn't it? And obviously it was Hans Asperger.
Yeah.
Who Asperger's is named from. And he wasn't a great guy. So that's all of it.
No, he was not.
He was not nice.
But it just means that we've still got so far to come in terms of our research. And I imagine that a lot of it will be around melatonin production, the moon.
There's a scientist called Lorna Wing, and she kind of picked up where Asperger left off, and her research is really good. And that was around about, say, like the 70s more.
Well, we'll put all of our sources that we've mentioned, and I've got a bunch of sources for these different research, different studies that I've mentioned. We'll put them in the show notes. So if you want to do more of a deep dive, you're more than welcome to. One thing that I did look into, but not very much, and I thought maybe this can be our part two, is I found some chitter chatter on the web. Some people saying spiritual practices are actually ableist. And for example, things like finding inner peace during meditation is perhaps not possible for some people that are neurodiverse. And again, it's such a wide umbrella, the spiritual world, as well as the neurodivergent world, that I'm sure there's some practices in one that are not conducive.
Do they mean like non-inclusive, like certain things are just not inclusive, I suppose they're saying?
It sounded like that. I find it difficult to meditate, but I think that's because I haven't actually learned how to meditate properly. I thought it was the fact that you had to rid your mind of everything, but I think it was you, Dee, that was like, no, you're supposed to actually think about something, picture something,
and concentrate your thoughts on one thing.
Since I've been doing that, it's been like so much easier because I can't sit there with nothing in my head. That's like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Well, and for example, I can't do like silent meditation where I clear my mind. I can't do that. I know some people can. It's not for me. It will never be. I've tried. So I always do guided meditations where I'm following someone's directions, and I've got some, they're guiding my mind, so it's not going off track in 100 different ways. Yeah. So, if you think meditation is not for you, try different types of meditation, I think.
In terms of the cycle stuff that you were just talking about as well, I'm reading a really good book at the moment. It's called Do Less by Kate Northrup. It's about how you can link your cycles into your productivity. Because what happens is, and this is what I wanted to kind of lead on as well.
Are we talking menstrual cycles or moon cycles?
Menstrual, but you can do both. So if you're someone that doesn't menstruate, you can still do this, and men can do this as well. So if you're if you're trans, if you're menopause, and you no longer menstruate, you can still do this and follow the moon cycle.
Nice.
But otherwise, you'd follow your menstrual cycle. But each part of your menstrual cycle has a different way that it affects your brain and affects your productivity. And it's about what you were saying about the feminine. It's about kind of leaning into that feminine energy of the ebb and flow. So men go through the cycle in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And we do it in 28 days.
And they say we're the hormonal ones, huh?
Obviously, that's why we're expected to kind of get up and do the same thing every single day, because we're expected to have the same 24 hours. But with women, we're not. So when you're menstruating or when you're in that part of your cycle, I can't remember the name of it now. I'll find the name.
But like when you're ovulating, you're meant to be more creative, aren't you? And then
so your cycle starts like the day you bleed, and then obviously it goes cyclical. There's parts of your cycle where you need to rest, and you need to be in that phase of rest, and you need to not do activities. And then there's other parts of your cycle where actually you're really, really like hyperactive, and you're really like, right, I can do this thing, and I'm really creative, and you have loads of ideas. And then there's other parts of your cycle where you can actually knuckle down and move through. So this is really good. Her mum, Christine Northrup, was like one of the biggest pioneers for like menstrual cycle studies and period studies and how they affect us. And it's not very periody. I did read it. I thought, I'm on the coil. Can I say that?
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
I don't get a traditional period anymore. So I was like, fuck, how am I going to do this? And actually you can follow it even if you don't menstruate.
Amazing. Thank you, Amber.
That's all right.
And we definitely have to do a part 2 because there's so much that we didn't have to have
we
time
actually have missed off a few bits, haven't we? So I think definitely the empath conversation can be a whole episode, to be honest.
Yes, let's put a pin in that, because I had lots to say about that and experiences. So let's put a pin in that. Yeah, shall we? I think so. Well, thank you so much, you two. I have enjoyed myself thoroughly. I hope everyone else has enjoyed this episode as much as I have. Let's just have a reminder. Amber, where can we find you?
So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. So on Instagram, I am at It's Amber Collins with an underscore. On TikTok, I'm just It's Amber Collins. Obviously, I'll pop all that in the show notes. And I don't have a website yet. I'm a little fledgling. Oh, and I'm also the Neurodivergent Awakening Podcast. So all about awakening to your neurodivergent self. So it really lends into what we're talking about today.
Right. I'm going to be definitely sure to catch that. And Dee?
Well, my podcast is We Knew the Moon. So if you look for We Knew the Moon podcast on Instagram or Facebook, you'll be able to find me on there, or the website, weknewthemoon.co.uk.
Fantastic. And by the time this comes out, we're going to have a shiny new website, Women Who Rebrand. And you can obviously find the podcast, Women Who Rebrand, on all your favorite streaming platforms. And we are on Instagram, Women Who Rebrand. It's all easy when you do all the same name, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And thank you, both of you. It's been so much fun listening to this.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
We Knew the Moon is the official podcast for the Goddess Temple Twickenham. Don't forget, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. You can also visit our website, weknewthemoon.co.uk, for all of our upcoming events and merch. If you sign up for any amount on our Patreon, you'll be able to watch our video recordings of our podcast from season 4 onwards, with all the raw bits. That usually means more swearing. Thanks for listening.